What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Keep Growing, the spot where resilience meets style. We're here to help young men like you walk through life with confidence, intention, and a plan for success. From life tips to fresh kicks, we've got the tools and inspiration to help you not just survive, but thrive. From where you are to where you're going, let's keep growing. I am genuinely excited to be here with my boy Julian and Deshaun right now, bro. Let me dab you up real quick. I'll dab Deshaun up. Let's go, bro. We're going to talk about today, and it sounds negative, but why people don't like athletes.
Ultimately, man, I don't see like I didn't see the purpose of that. And I was watching, they have Well Off Media, his brother, records a lot of the behind the scenes thing. And a team prank called him, man.
I saw that. Yeah.
But it was one of like I believe the somebody in the front office.
Defense or offensive coordinator's son.
Yeah, it was
they got
son.
the number, and then the friend called him.
And it's like those numbers are only given out to teams, teammates. And the players only have it. Yeah. So to do something like that on somebody's like one of the biggest days of their life, and he was already going through. He didn't get drafted the first day. This is the second day. Anticipation is high. Yeah. Nerves, certain anxiety.
Embarrassment.
Exactly. And then they have a prank call. Like, I just hope he uses all of this as a, in a good way, a chip on his shoulder to be like, okay, yeah, I'm really coming. You all played with me.
Yeah.
You all played with me. Because people can feel how they feel. But then when you start playing with people like that and you're doing stuff like in your prank call and doing things like that's out. That's unacceptable. So I'm rooting for him, man. And I'm always a fan of somebody or people that have personality. I like that type of stuff. So,
I can respect that. I think the only area that I feel like is different though is that primetime was primetime. There's only one.
For sure.
And I get like your dad's your dad, but I think there's a level of genuine like realness to with a personality that primetime always lived and carried himself with.
For sure.
And I think Shedeur doesn't show up in that manner. He's not a two-sport athlete. Shedeur is a one-sport athlete.
For sure.
He's a quarterback. He's a pretty good quarterback, but he hasn't done anything in the league. And why is it so different for a guy like the dude from Miami who went number 1 overall
Cam Ward
to show up in a suit? Very nice looking suit. He looked fresh. He looked good.
For sure.
Maybe a small chain, but he still had his Miami pin on him. Why does it have to be different for Shedeur? Like, yeah, be yourself for sure. But I think certain things that I listened to that he was saying in his interviews and to the press, I just think it came off kind of entitled, bro. And as a quarterback, you are the team. You are the first one that they're talking to and the last one that they're seeing. So I think you do got to carry yourself with some humility in a sense. And it's not like college to where college is just hype. Like college is all hype. Like he was a great football player. I'm not even taking that away. I like Shedeur.
For sure.
I love Shedeur. I love the way he plays. But I think at a certain point, it becomes business when you step onto the NFL. And I think the NIL doesn't help with these guys starting with that such an early. So that probably plays a lot with his ego. But I do think there was an area where I was like, dang, bro, I didn't really like the way he carried himself. And I don't judge him indifferently. I just think I hope this was his wake-up call so that way when he's in the NFL, he doesn't have that late wake-up call to where it ruins his career. Because I want him to do good,
Yeah.
I do. I just think they painted this picture, which I don't agree with a guy like that getting prank called. I don't agree with the NFL punishing him to go that late. But I just hope he sees what could really happen if he doesn't check himself a little bit because nobody's above the law. I don't care who your dad is, I
agree. I think there has to be self-analysis for anybody. But I think, one of the biggest things that I think it's just synonymous with just liking things is I think the same thing we can like somebody for, we could also dislike. And also we could look at like, let's say Chad Johnson, Ocho Cinco.
Yeah.
People loved the bravado that he had. He was super entertaining. He was Instagram before Instagram.
That's true.
As far as some of the things he was doing, as far as his celebrations, like watching the Bengals when he was playing was amazing.
It was.
But while people were entertained, they also sometimes were like, well, we think he's doing too much or this and that. So it becomes a line of, well, do you like it or not? Not you.
No, for sure.
But people,
for sure.
like, do you like it or not? Because although you're entertained and you like it and you can appreciate what he's doing in the entertainment and also how good he is, how great he is as a player, there are all these other things that you don't like and he's a distraction and this and that to where it's like, as long as he's not doing things off the field that are detrimental, as long as like he there are certain things to where it's like all these other things don't matter. You can have what you feel about somebody in regards to people making assessments, but if they're getting a job done, if you can see they're competing, if you can see like it's about the sport, I mean, all the other opinions, it's like, okay. Now, people do have to self-analysis. So analyze. So there might be certain things that any athlete might have to be like, okay, let me pull back from that. Let me assess. But I think that's a big thing I've noticed. People like certain things and then they dislike it for the same reason. So
it's like with
nuances.
Johnny Manziel too. Like there was things that he did that people didn't like, and
but there was a lot off the field too.
Oh, for
where
sure.
It's like it was creating a distraction on the field, and that's where it becomes a problem for anything.
Definitely,
in any player in any realm. So when it becomes off the field and then it comes on the field, that's when it could get problematic.
No, I feel that 100%, and I think I want him to do well. Like I don't even want it to sound like I don't want him to do well.
Mean,
yeah,
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
And to stay where we're at with things, like that is why we're here today, and I wanted to go into it because seeing someone like that, to where some people may not like him, some people do like him. I think I respect anyone that can be consistent regardless of who they are. Like if this is who he is as a person, and he can back it up on the field. Do what you got to do. I think any right person in the head would say that, like, do what you got to do, bro, to a certain extent. As long as it's not hurting the team or off the field, do what you got to do. But you got to show it first, So, yeah, I think to stay on that type of realm, we're definitely here today to talk about why this stigma of athletes it has such a negative connotation with people. And we're always talking about positivity. We're always talking about how to be better and be your best self, which we're still going to talk about today. But coming from two athletes, where Julian played basketball, I played baseball, I think we can both resonate with certain things that athletes tend to carry with themselves that they don't understand, especially when they're 18 to 22, 23 years old. Yeah. You know what I mean? So the first topic that I want to get into is 3 things that athletes need to be mindful of when they enter, let's say, the high school generation. You know what I mean? 3 things that young athletes need to be mindful of. And I want to get, your 3 things, and I'll give you mine, bro. But, what are 3 things as a high school going into their freshman year up until their college, if they decide to play after that or not? What are 3 things they should be looking at to make sure they're being cognitive of who they are as people?
Yeah. As far as in the sports realm,
just in life,
that's just tricky.
Because you know how athletes are, like with everything. 15, 16-year-old kid that's good. Let's talk about the kids that have a special talent, that really have a chance to play college ball.
Well, that could get tricky, man. Only from the standpoint of when you're that young, like we're speaking from developed minds. You know what I mean? Like
correct. No, so but it's like helping. It's like tips that they can do at that point in their life.
I think a lot rides in regards to like the people that they have around them, from a guidance standpoint, like a parental standpoint, because that's going to be essential because you're so young, and when you're him that young, and like it can get blurry. But one, I'll say, like knowing what are some of your goals in regards to what you want to do.
Right.
Secondarily, I'll say just like honestly, like working as hard as you can. And I know we've spoken about it previously in regards to, in some past episodes, but I think if you can have some type of line of, like a real authentic line of communication with your coaching staff and people around you that are going to be on your journey, because that can help mitigate a lot of things. And if you can defer to them in a sense of like knowing that they have your best interest at heart, and not get upset when they say certain things or bring certain ththings to you, I think that will propel somebody young super far. So those 3 things.
You're right on track with that. So those are great things, by the way. I believe the one of them you talked about was relationship blind spots. So having people in your life that can point out those blind spots for you. And then the other 2 that I had down was identify crisis. You are not your sport.
That's great. That is great.
And I think that was one thing we talked about. We'll talk about a little bit later on, but you are not the sport that you play, and you have no entitlement to think that just because you're good in that one area of your life, that does not define you in every aspect of it. Yeah. Which is why I encourage every athlete to find something outside of a sport to
that's great advice,
ground themselves in, whether it's reading or at 15 years old, maybe like a hobby that doesn't involve a sport. That's very true. That can really take away your ego out of everything,
that you love.
That's very true. And then the skill gaps. So sports doesn't teach you how to survive in the real world. Like there's life principles that we've talked about that it can help you with if you allow it to, but to survive in the real world, that there's an accumulation of things, bro. We're talking about job. We're talking about, cleanliness. We're talking about hygiene. Like there's so many things that we can list off that I think as athletes, especially going into like college athletes, they see things very black and white. It's like practice, school, practice, school, practice, school.
Yeah.
well, what do you do after that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do you interact with people? How do you interact with women?
Yeah, for sure.
You know, because we can't sit here and think that women aren't a big part of what this whole like entourage of being an athlete and why people don't like athletes are. Like, how do you juggle that? So
Yeah, great points. Great points.
Another thing that I wanted to spin off is, what would you tell a young athlete? And we'll speak to the college athletes now, so it's a little bit closer and they're a little bit more developed on how to continue to develop in the real life and real world.
Yeah. These are really good questions, man. And it's tough because, you know, when you play high collegiate sports, so many things are catered towards the athlete. You know what I mean? And a lot of the developments that maybe other people that are linear to these athletes might have developed or had to develop. Sometimes athletes don't develop it. And we see it in certain situations, whether it's with women or certain things. And it's just due to being so one-track minded on the sport. And that's kind of what comes with, you know, being super, super diligent on being an athlete. So, man, these are really good questions because the real teacher is going to be life itself. You know, whether that athlete continues in that sport or stops, it's going to come in somewhere, but it's hard to like shift an athlete's mind that's so really one track. Because speaking personally, like young me, but nobody could tell me anything else but basketball.
That's true.
So to even get that through my mind of something else, it'd be like, forget that. And of course, we're speaking on younger versions.
Right.
We're speaking from men, mature versions now. So now we can speak more analytical. We have more perspective. But what was somebody going to tell me when I was in high school and all my aspirations was get to the league, play professional? I don't know if I would have been receptive to, or even that wasn't an embodiment of who I was to try to find, well, what else? Like basketball was everything. Now, I think especially when you do see players young or athletes young, and they're also good at this.
Yeah,
they're also
very
talented,
and
and they're leaning in towards that.
Yes.
That's such a blessing because it's like, wow, you realized young that like, yes, you're good at basketball, but you're a painter. Or you're also like super creative.
Or those ones that like
beats,
play football and then they go and perform in the halftime band.
Exactly. Things like that. It's like, wow, that's such a blessing that you have the intuitiveness at that young age to be able to go and do that.
Right.
Because a lot of athletes are just like, this is it. And you can't tell me anything. And they have to learn that through life. So it's really just life for a lot of athletes, man. Is going to have to teach them a lot of things, truthfully.
I get that. And I think on the flip side of it, this is a different generation to where we grew up without social media. I think at the most of it, athletes nowadays, especially college athletes, have such a huge platform to lean on when it comes to stuff like this. Because you got two dudes that are pretty smooth. I would say I would agree and disagree with you. Whereas I would never listen to anyone when I was in that mindset because I know I'm good at what I do. But if I saw a dude that was smooth and I could respect and was coming from a different place, and I was to come across a TikTok or an Instagram and we're talking about this, I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna stop here. Like
for sure.
That hits different compared to an older, guy that just is speaking from like, oh, well, back then we didn't have that. It's like, no, we recognize that you guys have all of this stuff. You're very talented in the stuff you do, but you still got guys that the Texan quarterback, what's his name? The dude that won Rookie of the Year a couple of years ago. He still is going on to interviews, bro, and is saying, I'm second. God is before me. Like he's first.
For sure.
And it's like, it doesn't have to take a guy like him to be able to say that, but it helps so much with these kids that have true talent because you have a guy like him leaning on his faith, bro. There's no excuse other than listening and watching the right things as much as you are watching the things of the money, of the chains, of the hype. Like it just balances out. So I think the right athlete will come across this at their age that they need it and understand like, okay, like I need to find a band to get into, or I need to find another hobby or a side hustle that I could get started. And I see a good amount of kids doing it, bro, which I do appreciate. So, So going into the second topic, which we'll spend a little bit more time on this than the other two, but why people, especially women, don't like athletes. And I think we can kind of touch on these. There's three main things that I've got from someone that I know who has dated a professional athlete, and then things that I've researched on my own. So can you guess the three things? Okay, let's see. What
ego for sure.
Okay.
Ego, time, and probably attention.
Okay.
So just to list off
Ego, time, and attention. That would sum it up. What would you say, Deshaun? Would you agree? Yeah. Okay. So the top three: ego, entitlement vibe, emotionally unavailable or immature, only disciplined in one area.
But that's what's gonna happen a lot of times when you've played a sport since. I mean, how old were you when you started playing baseball?
Dude, I was 4.
That's what I'm saying. I was like probably 6 when I started playing basketball. I was playing soccer and basketball, and then started taking basketball serious. You've been doing this your whole life. At a certain point, women come into your life, but for the most part, when you're young, it's the sport. So then you grow older. Of course, you grow up, and it's like that's like yes, they come into play. They come into your.
I feel
life,
like they come in at an earlier standpoint for people that are gifted in a certain sport than others.
For sure. That doesn't mean one knows, of course, like one might not know how to operate within that realm.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother
I don't think
realm
any
within
guys,
itself.
I'm going to come out and say, I don't think any guys know how to operate women at any age. I think it takes a level of like understanding how to operate with people before anything. But I'll ask you a question. Do you think there is a required appropriate must-have age for guys that are athletes to know how to, I guess, work with women? Other than like a relationship, just in general, like as an athlete, like is there an age requirement that you should be able to know how to operate with women? Is that an expectation?
Well, I think that's from a self standpoint, maybe. I don't know about an age because it's tough, man. There's so people develop differently.
That's what I'm saying, but I feel like
it's so tough.
Yeah, because I don't know.
It's very nuanced because you have players that are young. And they might have certain skills that they know how to operate with women. And then you have players that, let's say, in the collegiate aspect of things, they might be good at the sport, but they still don't know how to like do certain things in regards to like when it comes to operating or having conversations with women because of multitude of things. They haven't been around women like that, or they've just been so headstrong on the sport that they haven't really intertwined their lives with combining that with women and conversations and going out and things like that. So I think maybe the latter part of high school, for a lot of guys,
that's realistic.
You know what I mean? The later part, but it's again, as you know, being athletes from young to collegiate, you see so many different variations of guys. It's hard.
Yeah, that's true. I'll also come out and be honest about it and say, I don't feel like I ever grew up when I was playing a sport, bro. Like mentally, like I always felt, even in college, I always viewed, in this case, women as a sport. Like I'm not even gonna cap about that. Like I did some things that I definitely, I don't regret, but I apologize that I've done to women, but I saw everything as a game. Like you said, how do you get out of that mindset from playing a sport and being really good at it from a young age and being told like, oh, you're going to be somebody. Mm-hmm. That only goes to your head. Yeah. And then try to understand like, hey, you're a handsome looking dude. Yeah. I'm a good looking dude. Women are coming into the picture now. They see you play a sport. That's automatically attractive. Those two. Yeah. How do you manage all that, bro? So I'm here thinking like, oh, it's simple. It's a game. You got to be good at it. You got to compete at it. You got to just move a certain way. And I think a lot of dudes do that, and they don't have anyone to sit there and maybe they do. I won't say they don't, but like to understand it at that level of, hey, bro, that's not the way to do it. And I think for me, I don't ever feel like I grew up and understood how I was really treating women in that sense until a little bit later after I got done playing. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
I think it takes life, man. And I think, one of the real realities is that, it's great to impart a seed into somebody in regards to like, giving them, that's all you can do is impart the seed. For sure. But I think just in the realm of sports, especially like if you are a handsome guy, if you're good on the court, on the field, and you know you him. It's hard for somebody to tell you something. Like it's hard. Yeah. Well, I won't say it's hard for somebody to tell you something. It's hard for it to resonate. And not take it to a place of like, I'm not good enough. Exactly. I need to get better at this. Exactly. I think the real resignation happens just through life. Yeah. And that's inevitable because you have coaches that tell you things. You have people that were in your position once before that are telling you like, hey, look, these are the byproducts. This is how it could go. This is what I was doing. Like, you're like, yeah, okay, cool, but I'm different or whatever. Like, there's so many, there's so many different, like it's gonna ultimately take life. All one can do is plant the seed and be like, hey, look, I see a lot of you within me. Well, I see a lot of me within you at this point in point of life, at this age. I just want to give you some game. Now, what you do with it, that's on you. I think with athletes, that's all you can do is be like, hey, look, you remind me a lot of myself at that age. And I see a lot of things that you're doing to where it's like, I understand you're flowing, you're doing, but let me just give you some game. And honestly say like, look, I'm planting a seed, or you don't have to say that, but it's like you're planting a seed. You do with it what you feel. But all you can do is plant the seed, because one day life will happen and then he'll be able to reflect and be like, damn, that's what he was saying. That's the only way for real, because he's still most likely he's in that mode. He's in that mode. So it's hard to like crack that code of like getting to, it's hard. It's difficult.
And it's got to come from a place of love and continuously trying to work with that. So before this, I talked to a woman who had dated or, possibly been engaged to a guy that was a professional athlete. And it was a good conversation. We talked a lot about like, is there really a difference? Which I don't believe there's a difference. I believe there's a heightened limit to what a college athlete to a professional athlete. I believe it's heightened to a certain extent. But everything that we talked about and that she mentioned in terms of these foundations of what she's felt as athletes struggle with, all aligned with everything that I felt like I struggled with first and what I've seen other athletes, guy athletes struggle with too. So I don't think there's like a formula for it, but I do want to call out like, being emotionally unavailable isn't just an athlete thing. I think being an athlete and being emotionally unavailable is due to us being so competitive that all we want to focus on is being our best version.
That's it.
You know what I mean? And that doesn't show up, I won't say entirely in a relationship, because if you're an athlete, you got a priority. You got priorities that are always going to be above a woman. If you're trying to play at the top level,
that's
college,
real. That's real.
They don't care if you got a girl.
They
don't. I mean, maybe if you have like a wife, they care a little bit, but most coaches don't care. They want you to win. So they see you as a number. They see you as a number. And I think having that conversation with her gave me some clarity of like, oh dang, like this is really how I was treating women. But it also gave me the clarity of like, not justification, but like reasoning on, yo, guys are like this because all we ever talk about in those huddles are game type environments. We don't talk about life. Our coach isn't talking about like, oh, what are you doing outside of here? They don't care. Not all of them do. There's some that do, but it can't just all fall back on us. I'm not going to say we can't take responsibility, but like the way players are developed nowadays, bro, it's all like a machine. Like they're treated like machines. The good ones are.
You're right, man. And it's you focus so much of your life on getting to whatever you're trying to accomplish is usually that highest level. That like just in anything else, it takes training. Just like we trained as athletes, other aspects of life take training. So when you haven't trained in that, inevitably there's going to be a deficit. And I think that's just really what it is. It's like when you're an athlete, you're solely training for the mission. Other parts of life you're not training on. So like regardless of how old you get, you're not trained in it. You're not going to be like really equipped within that aspect.
That's true. Okay, so next question would be, do you think as an athlete there is a way that you can kill your ego enough to be able to be in a healthy relationship with a woman?
That's tough, bro. Because we have to factor, we can have this, like, as athletes, you can have this ego from a kid to a certain level and there's no money involved.
Right.
And you can feel like, and know you're that guy. And really feel like, one day I'm about to really have everything I want, but I feel like that now. And there's no money involved. Now think about when you have millions, when you're in that car that you want, when you're wearing the clothes that you want,
when you're getting all the DMs,
when the women that you want,
all the DMs
are looking at you and you're handsome and you're smooth, it gets tricky. It gets very tricky. So saying kill the ego, man, bro, that's now the spiritual component has to come into play.
Bro, it has to.
It has to, because
that's got to be at the forefront.
Bro, that's the only way at that point. And I don't know how it feels to be a professional athlete.
No. I understand what you're saying, but you bring up good points, bro.
But I could only imagine.
Yes.
Especially if you're a handsome guy naturally, and then you're also good on the field, on the court, and then you're dressing how you want to dress. You're able to get cuts whenever you want. You're driving what you want. Everything you want to do, the jewelry, everything you want to do, how you want to do it, you're capable of doing it. and you're only around beautiful women, it gets tricky.
What's one woman stopping you doing something that you could be doing at any given day or any minute? You know what I mean? Like why would one woman be enough for you in that moment?
It gets tricky,
and it sounds bad. I'm not trying to sound disrespectful.
Honest,
I'm not trying.
Honest.
I don't know what that feels like either. You know what I'm saying? And I've done some shit, but like I understand that. You know, look at OBJ, bro. I'm telling you, OBJ that's a good looking man. That dude has the sauce. He has everything.
It gets tricky,
and
man.
I mean, dude, I couldn't imagine dude's DMs request right now, and if he had a girlfriend or not. But
just when you step in somewhere,
it's.
Like of course, you know, you have Instagram and all that, but just in real time.
Yes. How does your ego not get in favor?
How? Like, you know,
bro.
And then you're around your boys and you all are all living.
And then you go out for one night.
That's what I'm saying, bro. It gets tricky, man. It'll be I don't know, bro. I don't have the answers for that, man.
I think again, I'm with the hot takes today, but I will say as a woman, speaking from a man's perspective, if you decide to date a guy who's an athlete, who's a good athlete, who's like good in his sport, college, professional, whatever, expect the baggage.
You have to expect
the baggage, and
it's just reality.
You got to work on it with each other. At the end of the day, like you both got to hold each other accountable to certain things, but understand that dude is a boy. In certain aspects of life, he's a boy.
Yeah. No,
professional athletes, they're boys, bro. In certain things in life, I think
that's very true.
There's not a lot of professional athletes that are developed enough to where we're developed at, and just like we're not developed to be talented or like physically inclined to do the stuff they do.
For sure.
That's just the nature of it. That's the nature. So I would easily tell a woman if they're looking at dating, which a lot of women. And I confirmed this today. A lot of women that date athletes like the entourage that comes with it. They like to have a man that is being seen. They like to, maybe not necessarily be like, oh, that's so-and-so's girlfriend, but they like the fact that he's good at something. He's known for something. They like the scene that they're in a little bit, not to the full extent.
For sure.
But it's just as much on maybe a woman at some point.
Oh, for sure.
Just take a step in that and know that this is what you're about to get. Maybe they don't know the full thing.
Switch it up.
No, if you're going back for the second and third time, you can't switch it up. But like the first time, I think it's just something you got to have your mind open to, or ask somebody else or a woman that you trust, like, what's it like being with one of these dudes? Because unfortunately, it comes with some cons,
Yeah, I'll just say personally, if I was a professional athlete, I don't foresee myself taking any woman serious until I finish my career. And I'm not saying you would. You of course are going to come into top notch women and things like that. Right. But if you know yourself, and if you know like you're in a space to where you're flowing, just to be honest, you're flowing.
Have to.
It doesn't like. It's not probably the best thing to like try to bring somebody into that.
Yes.
Knowing how you're going to maneuver.
No, it's selfish.
It's selfish. That's what I'm like. It's selfish.
Yeah.
And that's why I say with having wherewithal, with having like, with having like, being like trying to be like the best version that you can be. It's like, and what you're like, how you're going to be maneuvering. It's like, why bring somebody into? Like, you know what I mean, it's really like, why for real?
Yeah. And that's why I said the accountability has got to be on both ends as much as, I will admit like being an athlete, and we've agreed that they're little boys in instances, but on the flip side, like you got to take accountability on that's what some of these women want, bro. Like not the little boy aspect. They want what comes on the good side of dating an athlete. Let me go to his games. Let me wear his jersey. Let me go hype him up. Let me, be with him during all this time, which is fine and all. But I think that would be so selfless if a lot more guy athletes were proactive to understand, like, how do you in a 365-day span know that you're going to prioritize a woman enough to maybe want to marry her, to set aside time for her when you're in off-season camp, when you have season, and you're probably seeing her maybe once a week, if that, if y'all aren't living together.
Too.
And if they're children, I don't know,
having
bro.
a family within that's tough.
And then having, a blended family with multiple women or men, like I bet it just gets crazy in there. And I don't know, like it sounds like a lot. And then already with the athlete, that's the only way they're getting paid at that point. Like what happens when they're done with it? And that was my next part that I wanted to get into is like the game-changing tips for athletes once it's over is, all right, bro, like say you made some good cash, you're in the league or you got NIL, but like when you graduate or when it's time to like hang it up, what do you do? Like a lot of these guys out here, bro, they're coming out of it and
Yeah.
No sense of self, no sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And sometimes nobody in their corner.
Yeah, that's
The
very
women
true.
aren't there. Family members may not be there. Friends possibly aren't there. Like, what do you do?
Yeah, that's true. I think at a certain point, again, from a self-actualization standpoint, because we all know from an athlete standpoint, the end, it has to, there's an ending.
Yes.
Now,
it
for
does.
some, it happens quicker than others. Some it's
Definitely.
unexpected. Some make it to the professional level, but there's going to be an ending. At some point, you have to start thinking like, all right, what am I going to do
For sure.
when this is done with? I mean, and if one doesn't like accumulate that mindset, well, then that's on him.
It is.
Truthfully.
Yeah.
Because if you know if we get on a plane, we're going to land somewhere. What are you going to do when you land at this place? If you're just in the sky and you get there and you're like, well, I'm off the plane. Well, are you just going to stay in the airport the whole time? Like, no, you have to figure out what you're going to do. So
Yep.
like that's the same with athletes at a certain point, and that's to the discretion of the athlete. You have to start figuring out and putting in place like, okay, what am I going to do when this ends?
And it's a simple question like that, bro, of like sitting in this case for me, it was my room at 2 a.m.
For sure.
And it was about a year and a half after I was done playing. But I just feel like the right type of dude gets tired of doing the day-to-day things of like, all right, I'm gonna do this again. I'm gonna go to the gym, go to work, go to the gym, go to work. Like, nah, bro, like really, what do you want for yourself? What is it? Like athletes, I'm telling you right now, a guy that is a dude and that played college ball or professional ball is not okay with not competing with himself.
for sure.
It's not okay with it.
Yeah.
There's drive in that, and then there's passion behind it, and that passion just gets transitioned into something else. It's got to. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, you don't stand still on a fire. If it gets hot, you move your hand.
That's it.
So in this instance, I would say like some pretty good tips that we jotted down before this was master a trade or a skill, bro. It is so easy now to get online and take a class or a course for, I wouldn't say pennies on end, but like for a decent price, but know that you're going to get paid either through the trade or after the program's done. Knowing that there's a job for you waiting for you outside of that, and it's there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you and again, it all comes from a self standpoint on really figuring out like, okay, and we see it all the time with athletes when we see like NBA players and they might be analysts for certain games sometimes, or they might be on ESPN. So like you kind of have to try to like ease yourself into certain aspects before the ending comes, and then you'll see certain analysts or you'll see certain things happen, because if not, it will creep up on you. The end will happen, and then you'll just be like, I'm here.
And you're broke, dude. You're homeless.
You didn't set yourself up.
Yeah.
You didn't set yourself up for the next life. The span of an athlete is not that long. No. I mean, it's becoming longer due to like medicines and due to technologies and just
the average athlete, like professional athlete.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What was it? Like 2?
Well, for depending on the sport, for
That's
NFL,
true.
it's like maybe like 3 to 4 years.
3 years. Yeah.
NBA, I think is like 5 or 6, if that. I'm not sure what it is for baseball.
Baseball is probably lower than that, bro. It's probably like
you
3.
all have so many different layers
it's
too.
like you're considered a professional even when you sign a rookie contract. You know what I'm saying? Like but you're not in the league yet. Like you're not at the top.
I just saw a player. I forget where he was playing to. He was like the top prospect for 2025, but he was in college. They were interviewing him. He was in a dugout, but he had got drafted or something already. And I was like, how is he still in college? But he got like.
Are you supposed to get drafted? Yeah.
Or like they already. It was something to where it's like. Or even high school play. You can get drafted out of high school.
Yeah, you can get drafted out of high school.
But can you go straight to the MLB? Or do you
could. There's not many that will, but you could.
Like Bryce Harper, he went
Yeah. Bryce Harper's one of the off ones that I think he played a little bit of minor league ball, but not as much as.
He didn't go to college though, did he?
No, he didn't go to college. He went straight out of high school.
Wow. That's
so
amazing.
It's like, move. Good. It's like in that aspect in baseball, it's just totally different because you have guys that can go in high school. You have guys that will be in a minor league system for their whole career and not once ever touch an actual MLB game. And that's the sad part about it is
it's like, how long do you do that for?
That's what I'm saying, bro. Like, and I respect it. I knew a couple of guys. One specifically, he just got done playing. He hung up the cleats, but he was trying, and I respect it, dude, because you know how it is. There's a certain level, and he was good too, bro. Like this dude was him for sure. Good pitcher, and it just doesn't pan out that way, and that's how baseball is, bro. It doesn't pan out for the guys all the time that should be in the league.
How long do you do that for though?
Dude, there's been guys that have stayed out there till like they got drafted when they're 23 and stayed there to 38.
Oh no, that's no.
There's been guys like that, and
how long would you say is appropriate to before it's like, okay, I need to.
In baseball, I think the longest that I would stay in a minor league contract for would be like 4 years, bro.
You said 23 to 38?
38, which even that's old, which I mean, some of them choose to stay in it. Like
that's over a 10 piece and with no bump ups to the
no
MLB.
bump ups, like stuck in AA or AAA, like 10 years, bro. There's guys that have been 10, 15 years. Like I respect
the grind. I respect
it. Yeah. It's not easy. Going on bus rides, getting they call them gas dogs, what are just gas hot dogs. Like that's what they live off of. Staying with families over the summer because they got to have a job. So they got to work these camps and get paid and then find another job, which is like at a grocery store.
Don't get paid?
Not in the summer, no. They get like a bonus, but that's it. They don't get paid when they're not playing. That's the thing about sports, bro. Like athletes don't. I think it's crazy when people see, in this case, like an athlete's Instagram page, and they're like, and it's baseball specifically, and like, oh, they're a professional athlete. They're training with the team in spring training, which is true. They have a chance to make it, but a lot of those guys aren't on that team, bro. Yeah. A lot of those guys, maybe 4 of them are getting paid like some real money.
For sure.
Real
it's like that
money.
With any team, though.
Like there's like 4 of them that are franchise tags. They're getting real money. The other ones, I mean, there's people out here that are making more than them on a yearly salary sometimes. Wow. That's just the way it is. So.
Wow.
Aside from that, like, you know, to kind of go back into the last 2 items of, you know, tips for athletes, tips for guys to really focus on, even if, you know, you're in a professional career or college career, I think networking with people and building a hobby that you could build a business off of. There's a pitcher. I don't know if you've heard of Marcus Stroman.
I'm not sure.
He's like a 5'6", 5'7" pitcher with the Yankees. Okay, and he was one of the shortest pitchers in the league and had a really good year like 4 or 5 years ago. Well, he started his own brand, and it's a shoe brand, and it's called Shugo. And now he sells cleats, hats. He has a summer ball team that he now sponsors. He got his whole brand lifted and is now doing successful with that thing.
Wow. Okay.
So I respect guys like that. Like I'm sure there's guys in the league that are the same way, you know?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. You re-jogged my memory because we were talking about in one of the other segments earlier in the conversation, and it made me think like when we were younger, like we weren't thinking of ourselves as brands.
No, dude, no.
Now young athletes are saying they're brands.
Yeah,
and it's crazy. You are, but it's just crazy to see like wow, like just how far the sports have gone.
Where it's at.
But the mindset of athletes now, from a younger perspective, which has pros and cons. But when we were young, it was just like, no, I love the game,
bro. It was just a game. I love the game,
and anything that you receive from it is a blessing.
Yes,
not like, man, I'm a brand. Yeah. And it is a blessing to see, but it's also funny because it's like, wow. But yeah, it's just a difference.
It's a different time. I appreciate the era that we grew up in playing.
Yeah,
I will say that. Like, not to sound like the old hag in here, but like I enjoyed growing up with the time without social media because I see it now and where my dad's at with things, bro. And it's like these kids are so out of touch with like real life. And this is what I mean is like the ego is heightened already as an athlete. But now to where it's at with social media and with kids running themselves as brands. Yeah. I'm sorry, women, like there's more ego to come.
Yeah.
Like,
it's gonna get ugly.
You give a kid a platform at 16 years old and he has 1.2 million followers.
Where do you go from that?
And he's signing deals with Nike and Jordan. Like,
where do you go from that?
I wouldn't know how to act.
But the crash out could happen younger too, which is not a good thing. The burnout, burnout can happen.
It will. And I think that's why I enjoy sports so much, regardless. You know, like as much as athletes can be egotistical or emotionally unaware, and just maybe only be good at one specific thing. Your time's coming, like you said earlier, bro. Like your time to be humbled is coming. Yeah, for sure. And it's gonna show up at a moment to where it's nasty if you don't catch it or you don't have the right people around you.
It can affect your trajectory. We've seen it with players time and time again.
It kills. Man. Yeah. Like as much as we're so like headstrong in the game, in the sport, dude, anything outside of life, it just knocks you down and you stay there. A lot of athletes stay there, and it's sad to see that. Like I've had friends that have just stayed in that realm, and I'm like, bro, get up. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. And it's so many nuances, but I think just life itself is probably the best teacher for athletes.
It definitely. I don't take away anything that I've learned from the sport in a sense of, if it wasn't for my failures in that, bro, that would have been, I wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
All right, bro. So we're close to the end of the show. I just want to, recap a little bit of what we went over, like, making sure that we're aware of when our ego is taking place as college athletes or young high school athletes, understanding what principles we're living by. And when it comes to women, be respectful. Don't make the mistakes that Julian and I made. Make sure to be level-headed and have that purpose and identity that's away from your sport to treat people. And Julian, last question for you, bro, but what's one thing that you would tell an athlete in this moment to keep doing and to stay true to when it comes to their brand?
Yeah, the brand.
Their brand.
It might sound just very like regular in a sense, but if like try to remain as humble as possible, truthfully.
Love that.
In a sense of like you can have that chip on your shoulder, you can know you're him, you can operate within that, but try to mitigate that and regulate that as much as possible because always remind yourself that the ending you'll quicken the
Corner,
ending.
Blue. No, you're good, bro. Keep talking.
You'll quicken
Corner
your
blue.
ending by constantly staying in that mindset. So just try to regulate your emotions and try to regulate, that edge that you have.
Turn that one off. There you go. That's the outro. You're good. Just keep playing it. Keep going.
But yeah. I think that's probably the biggest thing I could say to an athlete is try to regulate your emotions, stay as humble as possible, and understand that like the bravado that you have on the court, you do need it in life, but try to regulate that because if you live within that constantly,
Yes, bro.
something's gonna happen.
Yes.
And it could be at the detriment of your career, and that's what you don't want.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And it just takes you away from being in the present moment, bro.
Yeah, it
And then you
does.
look back at it and you're like, man, I wish I would have enjoyed this more. I wish I'd enjoyed being with the homies more on the court or on the field.
Yeah.
You're so blinded by the whole aspect of like what you're seeing on social media to where that's not who people are. Like, that's not who you are. Like, call yourself a brand, but live by a certain level of principles that your parents are teaching you or that one coach is just really instilling in you that you can make it, but do it differently than how others are doing it around you. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate y'all for listening and tuning in, y'all. If you don't follow it already, keep growing. And then we got Julian Robertson. Is it underscore?
Yeah, Julian Robertson _. Yeah.
And then Humble Trend on my end, y'all. I hope you guys have a really good Wednesday night, and we'll talk to you soon, bro.
Absolutely.